Welcome back, children, to the new session of Class 10 History. Chapter 1, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. And we are in part 1. In this chapter, we are going to study about the rise of nationalism and how it developed in Europe. And then definitely we are going to see about how the French Revolution further led to the idea of nationalism. Now, before we try to understand about the rise of nationalism in Europe, let us talk about this beautiful painting made by Frederick Sorio in the year 1848. Now, who was Frederick Sorio? He was a French artist who had developed a series of 4 prints, or we can say the paintings, wherein he had visualized his dream of a painting having a world made up of democratic and social republics. That is, a world where democracy exists, a world which has a government chosen by the people. And with the social republics, he meant to have people's rule and not a monarchical or a king rule. Now, in this print, Frederick Sorio has tried to imagine or show lot of things, like he has tried to show the people marching towards the statue with their respective flag, offering their homage or respect to the Statue of Liberty. Now, since Sorio was an artist of the time of French Revolution, he wanted to show that every country wanted liberty and freedom. He has tried to personify the liberty, or we can say a freedom, as a female figure. Now, if you see the forefront over here, you will see a lot of things scattered on the earth. Now, this is the symbol of nothing but the destroy of absolutist institution. Absolute institution means a governance by a single person like the king, who has all the rights and authorities in his own hand. So Sorio, with the help of this print or painting, wanted to show the world without any absolutist institutions, or we can say without any monarchical rule, by showing the shattered remains of the crowns, buildings, and so on. Now, other than this, the artist also wanted to show his utopian vision. Children, try to understand that the utopian vision does not exist in reality, because it is a society wherein there won't be any violence, no corruption, law and order is maintained. In fact, we can say a life with no tension. Now tell me, children, is it possible in reality or in practical? No, not at all. Therefore, this kind of imagination is called an utopian vision. Similarly, if you observe this painting carefully, you will see that there are different countries marching with their flags, right? So, here the procession is led by the United States and Switzerland, because by the time this painting was developed, they were already the nation states. We will understand about the concept of nation state little later, children. Now, other than US and Switzerland, next is France, and it is followed by Germany with its flags. Now, children, remember that by the time again when this painting was developed, Germany was not a nation state. It was just an imagination, a vision of an artist. Germany was followed by the people of Austria, the kingdom of two Sicilies, Lombardy, Poland, England, Ireland, Hungary, and Russia. Though Sorio was a French artist, he wanted all these places to become a nation state, having liberty, having freedom, and so on. Now, here if you see again, you can see Jesus Christ, right? Saints and the angels are gazing from heavens. They have been used by the artist to symbolize fraternity among the nations of the world. Basically, we can say this was the dream of Frederick Sorio. But now the question arises here is, what is actually the concept of nation state? That is, what is a nation state? It is the one in which the majority of the citizens, and not only its rulers, who came to develop a sense of common identity and shared history or descent. So basically, it means a state which has a ruler and his citizens belonging to one state, and they all have one common identity, one common history, work together for the development of the state. It is exactly like, for instance, in India, we have people following different religion, speaking different languages, and so on. But if we want to denote them to the other countries, then their identification is not in terms of a religion or a language, but in terms of a country, that is an Indian. Similarly, people share same history or descent. But children, the concept of nation state is different from the concept of modern state. A modern state is a state that has the power in a centralized way, and in addition to this, the sovereign control is exercised by the people over a territory. For example, we can say that the today's governmental system in democratic country is following a modern state kind of system. In this chapter, we will look into the different process through which nation state and nationalism came into being in 19th century Europe. Now, when we are talking about the French Revolution and the idea of nation, one has to understand that the first clear expression of nationalism came with the French Revolution in the year 1789. At that time, France was a full fledged territorial state, as it was under the rule of absolute monarch. Now, who was a monarch at that time? It was Louis XVI. Under his regime, there was a huge economic loss and people had to face hardship. Children, you have already studied about French Revolution in detail in your class 9. There you had seen people revolted against Louis XVI and also marched towards Bastille prison. It was stormed by the angry mob on 14th July 1789, as the Bastille prison was a symbol of absolute monarchy. The result of this revolt in the history of France led to the political and constitutional changes, and therefore it led to the transfer of sovereignty or the power from the monarchy to a body of French citizens. And from the very beginning, these French revolutionaries introduced various measures and practices which could create a sense of collective identity amongst the French people. Firstly, the ideas of la patrie, that is the fatherland, and les citoyens, that is the citizen, was introduced, which emphasized the notion of a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. Then the royal standard flag of the monarch was replaced by a new French tricolor flag. The Estates General, consisting of the clergies, nobilities, and the peasants, was elected by the body of active citizens. Now, this Estate General was renamed as National Assembly. New hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs were commemorated, and also these were done in the name of nation. Other than these, the revolutionaries brought a centralized administrative system, and it formulated uniform laws for all the people within its territory. The internal custom duties and dues, or we can say the taxes, were abolished. That is, people had to pay taxes to carry their goods from one city to the another within the territory. So now this was abolished, and a uniform system of weight and measures were adopted. That is, for instance, in city A, if 1 kg rice is equal to 1000 grams, then in city B, the same 1 kg rice would be measured as 800 grams. Whereas in city C, the same 1 kg rice would be weighed as 500 grams. Right? So the weights and the measures, they kept on changing from one city to the another. So the similarly, the taxes imposed on this, or which the sellers had to pay, also varied. Therefore, uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. The regional languages were discouraged and French became the common language to speak and read. Now, the revolutionaries decided that as these ideas and measures that are adopted in France for the betterment of the French people, these measures and concepts should be further spread to liberate the other people of Europe from despotism or to become nations. And for that, they started setting up Jacobin clubs, which consisted of students and the other members of educated middle classes. Their activities and campaigns helped the French armies to move into Holland, Belgium, Switzerland, and also the major parts of Italy in 1790s. The French armies began to carry the idea of nationalism abroad. Now the question arises that who used to lead these campaigns to different places like Holland, Belgium, Switzerland and Italy? It was none other than Napoleon Bonaparte. He was a statesman and a military leader. He was a powerful military leader because under his leadership, the French army had conquered a large part of Europe to spread the concept of nation states. But Napoleon strongly believed in monarchy, and therefore he destroyed democracy in France. But in the administrative field, he had brought tremendous improvement. He had incorporated revolutionary principles to make the whole system rational and efficient. This was named as Civil Code of 1804, which was popularly known as Napoleon Code as well. It abolished all the privileges based on birth. It established equality before the law, secured right to property, and in the Dutch Republic, in Switzerland, in Italy and Germany, Napoleon simplified the administrative divisions. Further, he abolished the feudal system. It was a type of social and political system in which the landlords provided land to the tenants in exchange of their loyalty and services. Then freed peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. Like if you see in this image that is given over here, you can see how the laborers were forced to work for the landlords. So that was abolished by Napoleon in the towns too. The guild restrictions, that is, the restrictions imposed by the powerful traders on the associations in terms of trade or manufacturing, were removed. Transportation and communication system were improved. Now, as a result, the peasants, artisans, workers new businessmen, they enjoyed this new founded freedom. The businessmen and the small scale producers began to realize that the uniform laws, the standardized weights and measures, a common national currency would facilitate the movement of goods, the exchange of goods and capital from one region to another. However, some of the countries under the Napoleon rule, like Holland, Switzerland, some cities like Brussels, Mainz, Milan, and Warsaw, who welcomed the French armies as the harbingers of liberty, were not happy. The initial enthusiasm of these countries soon turned to hostility as it became very clear that the new administrative policies did not go hand in hand with the political freedom. The increased taxations, censorship, forced conscriptions with the French armies, that is, willingly or unwillingly, they were enlisted in the French army, as armies were required to conquer the rest of Europe. So, all these seem to outweigh the advantages of the administrative changes. So, children, in this part of the chapter, you have understood about what is meant by nationalism, the concept of a nation state, and also how the feeling of nationalism came to France and how it started spreading to the other parts of Europe. Along with this, you also try to understand about Napoleon's Civil Code of 1804, and further how the countries of Europe who welcomed the French army initially but later turned hostile to the same French army. I hope everything is clear to you all. Now, in the next part of the chapter, you will be knowing about the making of nationalism in Europe. So, with this, we will meet in the next session. Till then, take care and goodbye.